creative living, utilizing today's technology with the best of the past to bring you innovative ideas and up-to-date information for creative lifestyles in today's active world. With your host, Sheryl Borden.
Carla, thank you so much for being here. I've had lots and lots of different commodities on the show through the years, but I have to say I've never talked to anyone about figs.
Well, we're here to do it today.
And this is the year of the fig.
You're right. This is the year of the fig. We are celebrating the year of the fig because more and more consumers, chefs, and food professionals are consuming figs, both fresh and dried. And food experts recently identified fresh and dried figs as the #1 emerging fruit in the nation.
And why is that?
Well, we think it's because there's more and more people using them, and it's very unique because each fig delivers different flavors.
And the availability is something that we can have year-round, isn't it?
Correct. Dried figs, which we have here, we have dried Calamernas and dried black mission figs. Those are available year-round, shelf-stable. You can put them in your pantry. You can even freeze them.
Oh, you can?
And they 6 to 8 months or even a year if they're in the freezer.
Is it just like an oversized raisin in the way that you take care of it when you mentioned freezing?
Correct. Any dried fruit you can do that with, whether it be prunes or dates or other dried fruit.
So these are all in that same category, but figs are really special because of their dietary fiber, isn't that right?
Correct. Figs, actually, as we look at it, as grapefruit comes from California. California figs are the only fruit that offer an excellent source of dietary fiber per serving. So 3 to 5 figs, fresh or dried, provide 5 grams of fiber. They're rich in antioxidants and fat, cholesterol, sodium free.
Wow.
But they also rank higher than tea or wine, red wine, for antioxidants.
Okay, well, let's talk about the different kinds because when you brought in this display, I really wasn't sure what some of those were.
Okay. Well, what we have here today, we have the brown turkey figs, which those
the
have
multicolor,
the multicolor here,
purple,
and they actually have a robust flavor like a Pinot Noir. And we try and educate the consumers more so in wine notes so they can think about what those flavors are, whether they're eating out of hand or in an ingredient as a recipe.
And it is a great out-of-hand snack.
It's absolutely perfect. You can eat them
Not
fresh
messy.
out of hand, or you can eat them, pair them with cheese or sweet and savory dishes. Here we have a Sierra, which is actually a hybrid fig from a Calamerna fig. And those can be buttery, nutty, almost like oaky like a Chardonnay. So again, thinking that. And the one that is only produced in California is the Black Mission fig.
I've heard of that one. That's the one I've heard of.
Right. The Black Mission fig is kind of neat. The Spaniards brought them over to California in the 1600s, and the priests at Mission San Diego are the ones that planted these in the 1700s, and that's how they got the mission name.
And had no idea what would happen with
No, and so they were planted in 1885 in Fresno, California, and predominantly we have Black Mission figs, but also Calamernas in the Central Valley.
And you said there's a couple of other varieties that we don't have examples of. What are they?
Correct. We have Cadotas that are also fresh and dried, and we have Calamernas, which again we have the dried Calamerna today.
So for availability, once we buy these off the shelf and bring them home, you were saying that they really require very little care.
Correct.
We can either freeze them, refrigerate them right then, or of course eat them immediately if you want to.
Eat them immediately.
But I guess you get asked this question all the time. Besides a Fig Newton cookie, what else do you do with figs?
We have been working to liberate the fig from the traditional Newton. And I think that's perhaps why so many people are celebrating and using figs more. It goes beyond the bar and the category of baked goods. You can go from sweet dishes out of hand paired with cheese. You can also use them in salsas, chutneys, just a handful diced up.
Cook them down like
Cook
for a
them down,
sauce or
yes.
something?
I use them personally. The fresh figs, I will slice those and roast those with summer vegetables. A little bit of blue cheese crumbled, little balsamic, and there's my vegetarian meal.
That's a great thought.
So it's really, it's the simplicity, and I think everyone has different flavors they want, and that's the neat thing about figs. Each variety has different flavors to offer.
Just like you were comparing it to the wine notes.
Yes.
And talking about a different version of a cookie, not the old Fig Newton, but this one looks wonderful.
The fun thing about this, you can make it, your mom can make it at home, kids can get involved. It's a very easy recipe. You mix the flour, and all you do is press the flour in the pan. So it takes a few minutes to do that. And if you want a healthier Newton or a bar, you just add whole wheat flour.
Oh,
And then the fig filling is just figs, black mission figs, a little bit of sugar because figs are naturally sweet. So you're able to cut down the sugar. So again, it's a healthier item. Water, and then you boil that into a little bit of a jam till it thickens. You put it as a filler, and then you crumble the top with the flour and you know the crust. Bake it for 25 minutes, and it's completely done.
It's sort of a typical bar cookie. I mean, if we made any, it's the same, but we're substituting the figs in it.
Yes, and you can dry or you can freeze these also. So you can cut them up, freeze them, you can stick them in your kids' lunch throughout the week, and again, it's a fast snack.
You mentioned the 5 varieties. Can we substitute the varieties in recipes?
You can. What we always encourage people to do is reach for them and eat them often. So you can do that, but what you will find is the different varieties will deliver different flavors to the end recipe.
And somebody may like the mission fig taste better in a bar cookie than one of the other varieties, so that's kind of a personal.
Correct. And like with the bar, you can also add a zest of orange. You can make, again, what are the ingredients and flavors that you as a consumer like? You can add those, and the figs will carry and enhance those flavors. Well,
I can see why you're celebrating the year of the fig, and I've really learned a lot. Thank you so much for being here, Carla.
Thank you very much.
Carla, it's nice to have you here, and I always think it's wonderful when you can eat something and it tastes good and it's also good for you, and that's certainly what the figs are all about, isn't it?
It is. Figs from California. We always say great things come from a great state, and California figs are an excellent source of dietary fiber. They're the only fruit that can make that claim. So an excellent source of dietary fiber per serving. They provide 5 grams of fiber. Fresh and dried figs, 3 to 5 figs. They're rich in antioxidants. The antioxidants actually rank higher than wine and tea in figs. And then there's sodium, cholesterol, and potassium free.
Is there any difference in the nutritional content of fresh versus the dried?
No, there's not. What you have the difference in fresh and dried really is the water content. So fresh can have 10 to 50% more water because they're fresh.
They haven't been dried.
And they haven't been dried yet, but the nutrition content is exactly the same.
What about availability?
Fresh figs are available mid-May through December. Some markets it might be November. And dried figs, of course, are available year-round. So we encourage consumers, enjoy your fresh, but also mix in the dry figs because you're getting nutrients throughout, and then you can have them year-round.
Well, you mentioned the figs grown in California, but what percentage of the figs are grown in California?
Well, 100% of the nation's dried figs and 98% of fresh figs are grown in California with wonderful growing conditions, and we produce the highest quality in the world.
So what are those growing conditions? Is it a special type of soil?
Well, it's the soil is ideal for growing. It's almost like the Mediterranean, if you will. It's dry.
Which is where the figs originally came from.
They originally came from Mediterranean or Greece in that area. And, but it's also the cultural practices that the farmers do in California that make it the highest quality in the world.
Well, let's take a look at them because I have to admit I've worked with lots of different commodities and foods, and these are just really unusual.
Well, thank you.
Let's take a look at the fresh figs.
Well, what we have here today, this is a brown turkey fig, okay?
Brown turkey.
And brown turkeys are actually the mid-May through December. They have the longest growing season, and they taste almost like a Pinot Noir, very robust. And so when you think about what you want to eat with it, you really want to think of the flavors.
And is that a mature one? Is that the size that they
can actually be a little larger than this. They a little larger, but this is an ideal size also.
If you buy these and take them home, do you ever, like with pears, put them in a bag and fold it down?
Never put them in a bag, never. And this is the thing about fresh figs. Fresh figs are picked ripe off the tree, and so they're very delicate. And so when they get in market, they're usually shipped refrigerated. And when you get them home, you want to refrigerate them immediately.
So keep them refrigerated.
And you want to handle them very carefully because they bruise easily.
Oh, they do.
They can stay in your refrigerator 3 to 7 days. And if you're not going to enjoy them or eat them, you can also freeze them.
Can you freeze them whole?
You freeze them whole.
Wow.
Put them on some parchment paper, on a cookie sheet, freeze them individually, and then just toss them into a Ziploc, and they're in the freezer for 6 months, and they're good to use.
Wow, so then you can just enjoy them, the fresh ones year-round that way.
Correct.
Now, the green ones look like little miniature pears.
They're pretty fun. This is actually a new variety, and this is the Sierra, and it's a variety similar to the Calamurna. It's actually a hybrid from the Calamurna, and these are almost like a Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh.
So again, thinking the wine notes, very tasty. These also have a long growing season. These are June 1 through November. And then the Mission figs, which so many people are familiar with.
And that's the one I've heard of.
This one is only produced in California, and it's available June through December as well.
And why the name Mission? I thought that was interesting.
It's because the Spaniards actually brought figs to California in the 1600s, and it wasn't until the 1700s that the missionary priests at San Diego planted figs. And so this fig is actually named after Mission San Diego, and that was in the 17th century.
And the interesting thing I read was that fig trees produce within what, just a year or two? It's not like a pecan that takes
about 3 years.
About 3 years.
First crop's 3 years, and some of our orchards are actually 80 years old.
Oh wow!
So again, they're very, they're very, the stamina's there.
And that's only 3 varieties, and there's actually 5.
Correct. We don't have the Cadota today, and we don't have the Calamurna. And the Cadota and Calamurnas are both almost like a nice yellow tone, buttery tone, and they're both fresh and dried figs as well.
Okay, and these are the dried ones, and like you said, we can enjoy those year-round.
Yes. What we have here today is the Calamurna, dried Calamurnas, and they have a buttery, nutty, honey taste to them, almost like a Chardonnay, kind of oaky to it. And these are beautiful in dishes that you want to have a little aromatic flavors with it, some lavender, pine nuts, and things like that. The Black Mission figs here, those are kind of like a Cabernet. And they are great for like a Pinot Noir reduction with a pork loin, if you will. But again, on this, you can take it to a very nice savory side.
That's an interesting comparison, the way you do that. Okay, bringing us down to something we might like to prepare ourselves.
Correct. And this is a fun dish that you can make at your family. You can enjoy it. What we have here are turkey sliders. And
Aren't the sliders popular now?
They're very popular. But we've taken that popular slider and we've done a little bit of things different with it. The meat actually has Black Mission diced dried figs in it. And as you know, turkey meat can be a little dry, need a little bit more moisture.
So that's a perfect
So it adds moisture, a little more flavor. And figs also, because they add flavor, you can reduce your salt, which all of us need to reduce salt in our diet. Then you pair that with a beautiful pepper fig salsa and any kind of fruit, whether it's fresh. You can use raisins, figs, mangoes, depending on what you like. Nice fresh.
Make a nice combination.
And you can make that, and the salsa is shelf stable for up to 7 days, and you can pair it with any protein, fish, chicken, grilled throughout the week, even pork.
So it is very versatile. I can see why you call this a nutritional powerhouse, so to speak.
Yes.
Well, it's really been interesting. I appreciate you coming today and talking to us about the California figs.
Thank you for having me.
Robert and Carla, it's really nice to have you here. We have 2 experts regarding food and nutrition and cooking. And Robert, let me start with you. You're a chef. You have your own restaurant. Why did you start cooking with figs?
Well, a couple of reasons. The flavors are marvelous and really magical for sure. And then 2, they have 1,001 uses. You can weave them through all sorts of dishes, from desserts to savory things. And then maybe I grew up with a fig tree as a kid, so it's a little nostalgic too. It goes back when I was little.
Do you have any of your customers that specifically come in and say, do you still have that, whatever it is, fig recipe?
You know, and when you do something great, you have to expect them to come back in. So,
you hope anyway.
And I think that's what's great. In the season, we're using the fresh ones, and when they come back in, and when they're out of season, we have the dried ones. So we get to work it from both sides.
And there's no difference in the flavor, is there?
No, they're texture a little bit different, but the flavors are remarkably parallel, and they each have their own uses, but each one is just as good.
I see. Well, Carla, you know all about varieties, and we're going to do some pairing of foods in a little bit, but I didn't know anything about figs other than I have eaten a Mission fig. That was it. I never knew there were 4 other varieties I could choose from.
Correct.
Would you tell us about the different varieties and maybe what makes one a little more unique than the other?
Absolutely. One of the things that really make figs and unique is the flavors. And Robert will go into the flavor profile more, but